Okay. Hey, welcome to another special day of the 30-30 challenge. As you know, we are now in October and month 2 of the 30-30 challenge. And so once again, I'm asking you to get involved with 30 days in a month. Generally, every other month it may not be the same. I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me. And 30 minutes a week. But really what we want you to do is find time during your week, right? Find time to do 30 minutes. And if it's easier for you, think of it in terms of 30 days, or think of it from a 30th to the 30th or whatever. But however you want to do it, you be you, to some extent. But here we go. So today, if you are a family and going through the Cornerstones book with us, we are going to be looking at that next question, which is this, is concerning God, but what does it mean that God is love? So if you don't have the Cornerstones book, I would highly recommend getting the Cornerstones book. You can get that off of Amazon. You can get it off of the christianbook.com. But today's question continues on in our 30-30 challenge. And if you are not familiar with this, you can go back to some of the other videos. We're doing every third one generally in our year plan to go through it all. But the question today is this, is what does it mean that God is love? So you probably hear that a lot, right? You probably hear people say, well, God is love. And when we say that, what we mean is, well, culturally, we mean a lot of things. But I want to answer that from a biblical perspective, because the Bible does tell us that God is love. There's a lot of weird answers that you get depending on who you talk to, unbiblical ones, when you talk about what does it mean that God is love. So people will say, well, that love is my God. And so all I do is I make sure that I am the most loving, and that as I love, that I'm fulfilling this. And you get some weird stuff that comes through that. But really, let's answer from a biblical perspective of what does it mean that God is love. So here's what we find in our Cornerstones book, is it says that God is love means that he expresses faithful love in all he does, and he is the standard of love. God is love means he expresses faithful love in all he does, and he is the standard of love. Now, this is a really cool thing to think about, because there's a couple elements of this. God is love means he expresses faithful love in all he does, and he's the standard. So when we talk about what it means that God is love, we need to recognize that we're talking about that it is something that is who he is. That he is love. He is the standard of what it means that love should be, which really is helpful, because we live in a time where love can mean all sorts of different things. We can see things like this. I love bread. The famous commercials that you see of I love food. I love ice cream, and so when we talk about items of things, that we use certain words for meaning all sorts of different stuff. I love coffee. But the truth is, how I feel about coffee is a little bit different than how I feel about, people. And so you go from that to this one, of course, I love you. I love you. This is how we say to people, and so there is a huge difference between loving a person and loving food. Now, culturally, our understanding of love may not be that far from those two extremes, because I love food, but I get sick of food if I've eaten a certain thing over and over, right? So, there's special places that are near and dear to me, but the more I get it, the more it's less special to me. There's a killer place I love to go eat. And it's a special place to me because I don't go as often, but that's Chino Bandito. Chino Bandito, it took a while to come around to loving it, but I do. But the fact is, I don't think I could handle Chino every single day. And so kind of culturally too, we kind of look at love in a similar way, as I like it as long as I like it. And as long as I like you, then I love you. But as soon as I stop to get that warm, fuzzy feeling, I'm no longer in love with you. Another way that we think about love too is, besides just that it's I'm kind of done with that feeling, is love for us culturally can just mean anything. It can really just mean I love you for temporarily. I love it as long as you're giving me something. Typically, the love that we express is something about what can I get out of it. So, you think about my emotions and everything's tied into as long as I'm receiving, I am in love. But the moment that I don't get things, think about this. How easy is it to say that you love something or someone when it seems to be unloving back? If my love can then turn off, then I don't know if that's the kind of love that I'm talking about. Because culturally, our version of love can be, it's like a spigot. Turn it on, turn it off. It comes and goes. But that's a very emotional, very, it's relative kind of love, but not really specific. So what does the Bible teach about love? Well, here are the verses that come out of the book, and I want to bring this up. This is what it says. These come from 1 John. There's all sorts of places you can get these, but 1 John 4, 8 through 10 says, "The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love." Now he's going to clarify that. God's love was revealed among us in this way. God sent his one and only Son in the world so that we might live through him. Love consists in this, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. So here's the first thing that we understand about love. Biblical love is one that the other side might be completely unreceptive. And in terms of the gospel, it was unreceptive. And yet God was willing to send his Son to die in our place. That's what we see here. Is you want to understand what the real standard of biblical love is. It's not that you make it up. It's not that, that's not the loving thing to do. We kind of, by the way, too, let me just say this. Culturally, we kind of equate love with niceness, too. Love and niceness are not anything the same at all. The biblical view of love is this, is that we see that even with one not reciprocating, God was still willing to come, and he loved us and was willing to send his Son to die so that he might redeem us. I love what we also see here in verse 19 and 20. We love because he first loved us. You think about that too. You did not get saved because of how much you loved God first. The biblical view is you didn't love God, and yet God was willing to love you first and call you out and save you. So if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother or sister, he's a liar. For the person who does not love his brother or sister whom he has sent, who he has seen, cannot love God whom he has not seen. And so the Bible lays it out on the line. When we talk about real biblical love, we're talking about loving people the way that God has told us to. And so this comes back to that question, right? I don't want to miss the point of this, because if you're a family and you're teaching this, we need to teach that the way that the world, talks about love is all sorts of crazy. But when we talk about how God is love, it means that God will be faithful in all that he does. He's always going to be loving. Throughout the Bible, he's always been loving towards his people. Really, the whole Old Testament is a point of the people do not love him, and yet he still pursues them. But we also want to say that he is the standard. And so when we talk about what that means to say that God is love, God is the standard of all love. We base our love not on feeling, not on emotion, not on highs and lows, not on what we can get out of it, but we base it on what does it mean that God, how does he set that standard? And it's who he is, and all that he does is the standard for what it means that God is love. So let's let that be what you kind of sit on. I think it might be fun to really talk about that. What does it mean to love? What kind of things do we love? And then maybe kind of push it and say, kind of think about that. Do you love people who you don't, that typically you don't like, or people who are mean back? But when you think about the gospel, is he was willing to go to the cross for us. He was willing to love us prior to us ever loving, and often living our lives contrary to what he wants. And yet he still loved us. And so that's what we talk about, the standard. So drive that home and think about that he is faithful, expresses faithful love in all that he does, and he is the standard of love. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Take care.